Welcome to the Broncos podcast with Troy Rank. I'm your host, Troy Rank from the Denver Post, columnist. Hope you read all my work there. Broncos country, I can't thank you enough from wherever you're joining me, your laptop, your phone, your car, your work, wherever that is. It is a victory Monday again for your Denver Broncos. They have now won 10 consecutive games, and you see the headline as crafted by my man Danny Bailey behind the board. Broncos sit atop the AFC. You're saying, well, they have the same record as the Patriots. They do. But with common opponents, Broncos are 6-0, Patriots are 5-1. Broncos are, as of today, we're in December, folks, are the number one seed in the AFC. And it's no longer talk about this team being a fraud, an imposter, being suspicious. And here's why. Who's left? Ravens stink. They might not make the playoffs. They have a losing record right now, and Lamar Jackson is just not himself. He's hurt. I don't know if you saw this. I know you did. The Chiefs lost last night. Their reign of terror in the AFC West is over. They are now clinging to a chance at a playoff berth, but they cannot win the AFC West. They already have 7 losses. They're going to have to win out to even, and they're going to have to get tiebreakers, and they lose pretty much every tiebreaker. That scene of Travis Kelce after tipping a pass that led to an interception with him laying there kind of capsulized their whole season. Everything that went right last year has gone wrong this year. They've been beset by injuries, and the Chiefs' reign of terror is over in the AFC West. Broncos looking to be winning their first AFC title since 2015, AFC West title since 2015. That's the days of Peyton Manning, the days of Super Bowl 50. No one has won it in the AFC West since the Chiefs. That will change this year. Obviously, the Broncos in a great spot. But what about that game against the Raiders should have you feeling good today? And man, the disrespect remains real still for Denver, despite their record, despite their methodical choking out of the Raiders on Sunday in Vegas. I'm going to get to all of it coming up right after the break. Have you been hurt in a car wreck, injured at work? What are you waiting for? Give my friends at Hoggatt Injury Law a call. They're there to help you. Their motto, with us, it's personal. That's because it is. I've known Darby Hoggatt forever, a good man, a good person, a huge Bronco fan. I became friends with him talking Broncos as we watched our sons play baseball across the country. His clients become his good friend. That's how Darby is. Again, you don't even have to pay Darby up front. If your case goes as planned, Darby will be the one writing checks to you. So again, hurt in a car wreck, hurt at work, what are you waiting for? They want to help you with Darby's team. Give them a call, 1-833-HOGGATT. That number again, 1-833-464-4288, or visit the website at hoggattlaw.com. All righty, welcome back to the Broncos podcast. I'm your host, Troy Rank from the Denver Post. And you can read all the work in the Post from Parker Gabriel, Luca Evans, Sean Keeler. I was part of the game day coverage, but I was remote and full transparency. There's always a couple of Bronco games a year I do not attend. As Sean Keeler is a columnist, attends a couple. Then I cover a couple of CU games. It's just the way our work schedule works out and how we plan it. But I was working remotely on what we call the 4 downs. It's kind of the 4 key points or 4 things that jumped out for the game that post right after the game. So I watch every snap. Actually, probably watch it more closely doing that project than I do it on the column, because the column is much more focused and a lot to talk about today. We all know the last time the Broncos played the Raiders, I wrote a lead in that game. They won 10-7. The Thunder ran onto the field right before kickoff and took a huge dump about the 5-yard line. And it was not disgusting. It was foreshadowing. It's one of the ugliest games many of us have ever seen, outside of that Colts loss with Russell Wilson, the year of Hackett. The win over the Raiders was the second ugliest game I'd seen. Broncos had 10 first downs, more penalties than first down. It was just a complete abomination. And Sean Payton admitted that. He admitted it in the meetings with the CBS crew, that it was one of the worst game plans he ever had. Essentially, the Raiders did stuff with stunning and stuff defensively they hadn't seen on film, and they weren't ready for it. Players said that afterward, Adam Troutman included, that they just got caught off guard and they were flat-footed. They did not get a first down until the 5:25 mark left in the half, the first game. Totally different game plan. And while some say this win was ugly, I disagree. They've had ugly wins, and they've had lucky wins. This one was methodical in nature and exactly what this Bronco team needed entering into the Packers game. And we will get into that Packers game, into that last headline about the defense and the disrespect. But if you are going to win against a good team, especially as you get into December and January, we all know the saying, defense travels. It does. But you have to be able to play keep away to keep your defense fresh. And the trick of all that is leading in a game. And for the first time this season in a victory, the Broncos led the entire way. It felt different because it was different. They had 9 consecutive games where they had to come back and win. That's an NFL record. They had won their last 4 games by a combined 10 points. And some of that's great. It's the clutch gene. It's, the John Elway, sprinkle the magic, a little bit of Peyton Manning, Bo Nix finding a way. But these were against bad teams in some cases. I mean, the Commanders are not good, folks. And so it's different if you're beating great teams that way. And even the Chiefs, I mean, they're certainly not great. They're not even good this year. They have delusions of adequacy. But to beat them, it's just different. It's a rival. And given the history in the recent 9 years, that's still always going to be a good win, home or away. But some of these games, the Giants are terrible. The Jets are terrible. Commanders, I mean, basically NFC East outside of Dallas has been awful for long stretches. My point being, you don't want to grind those out and win ugly. The Raiders game in conference, you just played them last month. Those are games that can get a little grimy because you know each other so well. And that's where the coaching showed up. The coaching showed up. The Broncos clearly had a plan to rush the football against a pretty good rush defense, middle of the pack rush defense. Raiders are pretty much terrible at everything this year, but their defense against the run has been decent, partly because they get passed on, we get it, but they're decent. The Broncos committed to, we are going to put the ball on the ground and run the football. Now, they're not ever going to run it more than they pass it under Sean Payton, so just stop. Would you email me and say, oh, they've got to run more and more? They're not going to. Sean Payton gets the fever. He loves to pass. But at least this time he did it differently. God bless. I think he only had like 1 or 2 wide receiver screens. Fine. That play is not working because they don't block it. That's why I'm saying coaching adjustments. Physical up front and use swing passes. Use different ways that have been extension of a run game with swing passes. But let's look at these drives. The Broncos had 3 8-minute scoring drives in this game. Their first touchdown drive. 14 plays, 81 yards, 854. Go up 7-0. Then the Mims touchdown on the punt return. That's his first, folks. It's first. In his 69th punt return of his career, it's first. He had a kickoff return against Miami. That was that 70-burger game, but he had never had a punt return for a touchdown. He's averaging 16-7 a return. He's gonna be all-pro punt returner again. That's why it was such a crime when he was missing those games with concussion. You can't do dumb shit and have him miss games because of a wrong substitution. He's too valuable. And they're not using him offensively, so they really need him on special teams. You have an 8-minute drive, 14 play for the first touchdown. The next touchdown drive by the Broncos, 14 plays, 91 yards. Takes off 9:13 on the clock. Harvey has that one with a 3-yard run. Nix had the first one on a run, a designed run. And then the final drive, it ended up in a field goal, 19 plays, 90 yards. I know the 2 first 8-minute drive ones were the first time since 2000 in a game where they had that many plays and that much time off the clock. So I'm assuming this with 3, it goes back even further. That's why the score stayed down, but that's fine. I talked about it on the pod last week. What are the things you want to leave with from this game if you're the Broncos? And 2 of my 3 goals they left with. Number 1 goal, leave trusting RJ Harvey as your main back. And they did. RJ Harvey ends up with a career high 17 carries for 75 yards, 4.4 clip. That'll work. 1 touchdown. And he also was involved with a career high in the passing game, 6 catches, only 25 yards. But his catch on 3rd down in the first drive, they're in danger of being off the field, 3 and out. He gets absolutely slammed, bounces off, pinballs, and gets the first down. He did that, I think, 3 times by my count, where hit, clearly going to go down, and finds a way to wiggle in. That's what they need from him. Yards after contact. And it might only be 2 or 3, but in that case, it resulted in a first down. It kept the Broncos on the field. That has been the biggest issue when we look at their offensive consistency. Entering the Washington game, folks, they led the league in 3-and-outs. And that's what'll kill you in the playoffs because your defense ends up stuck on the field. You're trailing. And the one thing you do better than anyone, rush the passer, gets negated because they don't put the ball in harm's way. They get up 10-0, 13-3. Your defense is forced to take chances, or the ball, there's no chances to take. They just don't sit back there in the pocket and allow you to sack them. But Harvey showed patience in the run game. He showed a clear intent to run up the middle between the tackles. It's not perfect, but much better. We all know that his issue has been he's taken to coaching, but he still is having trouble on two things: learning when to put the foot in the ground and get upfield, and he did that much better against the Raiders. And you know he did it better because his speed at contact was better. It was allowing him to break tackles. The more decisive he becomes with that pitter pat, boom, cut back, the better he's going to be. He's not a big guy. He's only 5'9", but he's got huge legs. Those Teenage Mutant Ninja legs, that is huge for him. And he avoided that temptation to, don't see it, bounce outside. Because when you play the Packers this coming week, that bounce outside is not going to be there. Micah Parsons is out there. They've had a top 5 defense in every category pretty much for the entire season. You're not going to bounce outside. You've got to be able to trust you can run up the middle on them. And it might be 20 for 58 yards. It's just the ability to stay patient with the ground attack, opens up play action, opens up Bo Nix to bootlegs, opens Bo Nix up to getting out of the pocket and give him the run pass option. They still don't run enough with Nix. I've said that. They're not going to. He had 3 carries for 15 yards. I'd love to see that number at 5 to 6. They're not going to. But if you're able to run the ball, it opens things up. But Sean Payton, give him credit. He talks about every game has a way to win it. There's a way to win every game. And he clearly went into this game that we're going to be methodical. It's just kind of that boa constrictor that just siphons the life out of you. We're going to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze until you look up and you're down 3 scores with 5 minutes left. They gave up just an absolutely brutal bad beat. I don't gamble, but man, that was an all-time bad beat with Brandon Jones laying on the receiver and the Raiders kicking a field goal with no time on the clock to make it 24-17 in a game where the Broncos at most books were 7.5-point favorites. That's the old When you talk about why people shouldn't gamble and get backdoored, that was it. And it made no sense. I know that they're saying that if the kick had gone, then they get an onside kick. And I sort of get it, but wow, that's a bad beat. That's off topic, but man, that's an all-time bad beat. But Sean Payton, he committed to the run. He committed to the way they were going to eat the clock. And I said before this game, you've got to give Harvey a chance to emerge. You can't give him small doses. If you want this kid you want to microwave his development, you got to keep him in there with the door shut and the timer on. Can't heat it up for 10 seconds and say, why isn't it ready? It's not hot. You got to give him a little more time in the microwave. I know we're trying to do it fast. And he did. 17 carries, 75 yards. It was a very, shall I say, J.K. Dobbins-like day. So the key in this game, they suck out the clock. They establish Harvey. The defense got back to where they're sacking the quarterback. They did not emphasize Ingram. Ingram played fewer snaps than guys like Lil Jordan Humphrey and Troutman. And that tells you everything that they went into this game saying we're going to run the ball because they don't trust Ingram as a run blocker. Fine. I'll give him a pass on that. I still think going forward, Ingram has to get 6 to 8 targets a game. But they left with 2 objectives accomplished. Harvey leaves with your trust that you can put him in this game with both pass pro and a 3-down back if need be. He is clearly your back going into the Packers game. And your defense got back to getting after the passer. And it was an absolutely beautiful thing to think. Well, how did Bo Nix play? And what about this massive disrespect the Broncos are getting against the Packers? That's coming up after the break. Listen, you face curveballs in life from family challenges. We all do. You got divorce, legal separation, child support, alimony, custody. You need a lawyer who understands human dynamics, the courtroom, and is willing to fight for your rights. You need Ted Shih. He's a graduate of Cal Berkeley Law. Ted brings 40 years of courtroom and 20 years of family law experience to your corner. Ted's been a social worker, a police detective. First and foremost, though, he's a trial lawyer. Tried cases in Colorado and across the country. Martindale Hubbell ranks Ted as one of the top lawyers in the United States. You want an expert to navigate your family challenge? Call Ted. Ted's passion is putting you first. He'll work to settle your case, but he's not afraid to fight for your rights. Ted can be reached at theoshih@aol.com, TheoShih@aol.com, or call him at this number. Write this down: 303-475-2981. That's 303-475-2981. Ted promises to respond to your concerns within 24 hours, 365 days a year. Welcome back to the Broncos Pod. If you're joining from this point on, I'm Troy Rink from the Denver Post columnist. You can read all my work at denverpost.com/sports. Find it on Twitter at Troy Rink or on Facebook. I've engaged in Facebook more over the last few months, found a way to allow myself to use Facebook without getting caught up with all the extracurricular stuff that usually that place involves, to where interact a little more and get opinions. I love the insight from Broncos country. I don't always agree, but that's part of sports. You kind of agree to disagree. And some of the best insight I get is from followers on Twitter and from friends on Facebook. So thank you for following me those places. I'm on Blue Sky as well on Instagram. I'm not as active in interacting there, but you can find all my stuff there. And we'll be writing this week about Bo Nix, of course. Bo Nix versus Jordan Love, a huge matchup. And Bo Nix, these last 3 games, folks, has figured it out. I mean, you got to call it what it is. We are all critical of him, myself included, that like you're not going to be a playoff team the way he was playing. And they're still throwing too much, if we're being honest. But you look at what he's done these last 3 games, and it's the Bo Nix we saw the last 12 games of last season. These last 3 games against Kansas City, I'm going to see if we can't get that jumped up here. But you're talking about Bo Nix, Kansas City, 24 for 37. Against Washington, overtime, 29 of 45. And then against the LA Raiders, Vegas Raiders, 31 of 38. So his completion percentage has jumped dramatically. He's back up to 63.2. He was floating around 50, getting close to 50 at one point this season. But he's taking care of the ball during this time. In these last 3 games, Broncos obviously 3-0. His completion percentage is 70%, 828 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Rushing, he's got 8 attempts for 39 yards and a touchdown. So sound play. After this game, there became some of the criticism. Oh, he's a game manager. Just stop. He's doing what they're asking him to do. He takes care of the ball. For the most part, he doesn't get sacked. He's been sacked 6 times in these last 3 games. That's a big number for him. That's still only 2 a game. So he doesn't get sacked much. He takes care of the football. And now what has returned is the accuracy. Missing for large chunks early in the season where he's 55, 58% accuracy. That's backup quarterback level. He and Peyton have found a rhythm. Bo's clearly gained more confidence in some of the stuff called. The operation has smoothed out. I think part of it, whether I like it or not, whether Ingram plays more, but when you commit to a style of play as they did against the Raiders, fewer personnel changes. That's not a bad thing, folks. I've said that all along. The hockey line changes with Sean Payton are problematic when it's happening too late. You got 5 guys coming in, Nick's trying to get them lined up, and then he's walking up to the line of scrimmage with 5 seconds on the play clock. That's not good for the kid. He needs to be breaking that huddle, with 13, 14, so he can walk up there and assess what he sees and get them out of bad plays. And he's clearly done that better these last 3 weeks. He has played well. This is the Bo Nix we saw the last 12 games of last season. This is a Bo Nix can win in the playoffs. Does he have to be better? Of course. But you have to understand, too, let's be fair to Nix. Where are all these great weapons? Like when you talk about Matthew Stafford could win MVP, he's got Puka Nacua, right? He's got a number 1 clear receiver. And, the number 2 is Devontae Adams? Really? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like when you start talking about quarterbacks having huge years, I guarantee you they have better weapons than Bo Nix. And it's not to disrespect Cortland Sutton. He's a nice receiver. Cortland's going to be fighting to get to 1,000 yards this year. He's their clear number one. Troy Franklin, they're kind of phasing out a little bit. Pat Bryant's getting more catches. And then you have Ingram and Mims, as I've told you all, is a gadget player. So when you expect the world out of Knicks, I mean, it's in some ways it's similar to when I covered John Elway back in the day. He didn't have a Pro Bowl receiver in his career until I believe it was Anthony Miller, about 10 years into his career. We all talk about and glorify the three amigos with Vance Johnson and Ricky Nattiel and Mark Jackson. They're nice players. Those guys aren't Pro Bowl and all pro guys. It wasn't until Elway, when he took off under Shanahan, when he had Rod Smith and Ed McCaffrey, Terrell Davis, all of a sudden John Elway's winning a hell of a lot more games and winning in the playoffs because he didn't have to do it all. That is still a concern of mine as they move forward in the big picture, widen the lens. They need to get better weapons, but they can win this way this year in the AFC. It is wide open, folks, as we talked about. The Bills, they won. They're streaky. Their defense isn't good this year. It's just not. And they ask so much of Josh Allen. Anytime he has an off day against a good team, they're vulnerable to lose. The Ravens it's not their year. It is not. People are still buying into the Ravens. They might still win that division. I don't like the Ravens this year because Lamar Jackson's just not right. Every time I watch him, he doesn't look the same. He's not explosive. He looks like a guy who's hurt, which he's been for most of the season. And Patrick Mahomes, they don't run the football. Everyone keeps asking, what's wrong with the Chiefs? They can't get off the field on third down. They don't run the football. Now, Chris Jones played out of his mind last night. They haven't seen that version of Jones really all year. But Kelsey's on the other side. Anyone that watched him in the Super Bowl, you age. It's just natural. He's had first ballot Hall of Fame career. He looks like a guy who's done. Even if numbers or whatever they are, I'm just saying the eye test. He's much closer to being done than he is the other way. Rashee Rice, these are nice players. He's not Jerry Rice, okay? And they don't run the football. That's a problem when you have three linemen out and you're asking Patrick Mahomes to play Superman. They're asking him to do what Josh Allen's been trying to do. And you can win games, but it's hard to win games against good teams consistently. And that's what, and they don't win late like they used to. Last year, they got every break, every call. They put themselves in position to win those games. But again, honestly, there was always going to be a course correction. You can't win that many close games and not have it flip. Could that happen to the Broncos next year? Certainly it could, given the way they've won, especially the previous 4 games before the Raiders game. But Bo Nix is doing what he's asked. These last 3 games, this is the guy you can win with. This is the guy that can beat the Packers playing this way, where you average 240 a game around there. Now, I don't love the attempts at 40, but he's averaging, again, these last 3 games, 28 for 40, 70% completion, 276 a game in yards, 6.9 yards attempt. That's fine. It's not, again, sacked twice a game, and he's rushing a little more. The ideal Knicks number for me would be more like 25 for 35 for 250, because when you start dropping back and that number starts with a 4, it's hard to win in the playoffs that way. But again, give Sean Payton credit. He clearly went into the Raiders game saying, we're going to have fewer personnel changes. We're going to play our best blocking team, which is, for him, is Adam Troutman, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Pat Bryant, the guys that are the best blockers. They're going to play more, and we're going to run the football. And they ran the football. Again, they're never going to run it the way you all want them to run it, but they ran the football enough to walk away saying, Harvey, you're the guy this week. You're the guy. So you got Harvey playing well. Bo's played well the last 3 weeks. The criticism of him has gone way down. Turn that knob down. He is the reason they're winning, not waiting until the fourth quarter to eke out a miracle. He's playing much better. And clearly in tempo, he's at his best. But this game was an example of how he can manage a game and play well and execute a game plan and do his part. He was just incredibly accurate. And that's the version they need. And the final piece was the sacks came back. 4 sacks, not ideal. You'd like 5, like 6, but the pressure was there. You saw Zach Allen getting that pressure back. And I'll take you to a conversation I had with Von Miller a week ago. It's been 8 days ago now, 9 days ago. When I talked to Von about this Broncos defense, he loves this Broncos defense. Again, is it the 15 defense? That's not fair. They had 2 Hall of Famers in Von and DeMarcus. Aqib Talib's got an argument to be in the Hall of Fame. Chris Harris should be a Ring of Famer. Derek Wolf's kind of got that argument. I mean, they're just better. But when Vaughn talked about the defense, folks, he told me that the key to the defense in his mind, and he watches these games, he loves the Broncos still, is Zach Allen because of his ability to create pressure inside, ability to create double teams, ability to hit the quarterback. He told me that he said to me that when he watches Allen play, that it's a combination of Malik Jackson's speed and Derek Wolf's strength. That's a huge compliment. Huge. Because Malik Jackson in 15 played out of his freaking mind. He set the tone with his nastiness and his athleticism, and Derek Wolf set it with his brutish physicality, taking on double teams. So if you morph those two into one player, that's where we get that J.J. Watt-like comparison that I've made since Zach got paid. When he is active up front and he's getting pressure inside, man, are they good. They are good. It forces you to make really tough decisions on Benito. You know, if you try to go one-on-one with Benito, eventually he's going to get his, and he did. He got to. Cooper had better pressure. They have to get back to that. And playing with the lead helps. Obviously, teams, you've seen it, and I talked about it. Is there a hack on the Broncos defense? No, there's not. But teams are clearly getting the ball out more quickly, saying we're not going to let the Broncos beat us with sacks. Jordan Love will hold on to the ball, folks. He will make bad decisions. He's a really good quarterback. No one is saying he's not, but he will hold on to the football and give you a chance to make a play on a ball. And he has games where he's just inconsistent, but he's at 22 touchdowns, 4 picks. They're 9-3-1. But the crazy thing is, in their losses, they've had games. Usually when they lose, they score under like 10 points. They got off to that good start. They lost to Philadelphia 10-7. They lost to Carolina 16-13. They tied the Packers, but then they lost to Cleveland 13-10. When they lose offensively, they're a mess. They haven't been recently. That's fair. That's fair. 28, 31, 23. They basically get to the point with Love after the Phillies loss where there's questions of whether LaFleur's going to keep calling the games and say, just let it eat, let it eat. But he doesn't throw like Knicks does. You're talking about in their wins. You look at their lot, they've won 4 straight. He's 13 of 24, 14 of 21, 18 of 30, 17 for 25. You are talking about a guy who's barely throwing the football when you look at what Knicks does. Knicks, I told you, the last 3 wins is averaging 40 attempts. Jordan Love's right at like 25, but the touchdowns have gone way up. 2, 0, 4, 3. 9 touchdowns in his last 4 games. When he's right, and they're healthy now, they've got their receivers back, they're really good. And they can run the football, and they stop the run. That's why this is such a cage match. Bare knuckle brawl. Throw the sawdust down. Let's go. And that's what this looks like. The defense did get its groove back. But we're going to finish this pod with the disrespect is real. Oh, my God. The Broncos, depending on the book, are an underdog to the Packers. 1.5 on Bet Online AG. They send me emails, so I'll refer to them. I saw Parker Gabriel after the game. He was in Vegas. BetMGM had him a 2.5-point dog to the Packers. The number of times a team has been on a 10-game win streak, an 11-game win streak at home, and been an underdog, not very often. When the Broncos had that 9-game home winning streak, that was only the 6th time. This will be, based on Broncos notes before they played the Chiefs, because they were an underdog to the Chiefs at home. That was only the 6th time that a team had been an underdog at home with a win streak at home of at least 9 games. Now their home win streak's at 11. They beat the Chiefs. The Broncos now at 11 home wins. Now you've got a situation where they're a home underdog with an 11-game home winning streak. So the teams in those spots usually weren't good. The Broncos, they're 2-4, and the Broncos are one of those wins. So as far as I can tell, this will be the 7th time you have a team with a win streak of at least 9 games at home and be an underdog. Broncos now have one of those wins. They beat the Chiefs. Listen, I get it with the Packers. I would think this game should have been a pick 'em. There's no way in hell I'm favoring the Packers in Denver. Not doing it. Packers. But it's an interesting thing because in the Broncos' great seasons plural, the Packers have been intertwined. We all remember Super Bowl 32, the Broncos' first ever Super Bowl title. I covered that game. Broncos at one point, I think, got up to like 12.5-point underdog, biggest underdog since the Jets versus Colts, the famous Joe Namath guarantee game. Broncos, in a lot of ways, kicked their ass that game because they ran the football, and Gilbert Brown and crew had no answer for Terrell Davis. Even with Terrell dealing with migraines and missing some time, Terrell just absolutely put his footprints on the Packers. Broncos win the Super Bowl. Steve Atwater, if you go back and look, he's a friend of mine, so maybe I'm biased here. If not Terrell Davis, Steve Atwater could have been MVP of that game. He played out of his mind as well. But they win. Biggest win in the history of the franchise. Finally break through, win the Super Bowl. Flash forward to 2015. Packers and Broncos both 6-0, Sunday Night Football, biggest game of the week. Aaron Rodgers in his prime. The Broncos, if memory serves, they held him to 67 yards passing. I think they sacked him like 7-8 times. Might be the worst game of his career statistically. Again, this isn't Aaron Rodgers with Jets. This isn't Aaron Rodgers, the Steelers version. This is Aaron Rodgers in prime Aaron Rodgers, 2015. And the Broncos absolutely mauled him. It's a game it's a touchstone game in that season. They had hiccups later, but when you talk to players on that team of, hey, big game, challenge, disrespect, no one thinks we're for real, they absolutely kicked the Packers' ass. Here we are again, flash forward 10 years later. Broncos v. Packers. Packers atop their division after beating the Bears. Broncos atop the AFC after beating the Raiders. And the Broncos are a home dog. This is where the disrespect's real. The Broncos are no longer a fraud, folks. They're not. Because of how they beat the Chiefs and because of how they beat the Raiders. There's now meat on the bone. Have they gotten lucky? Have they been in too many close? Yes, they have. But philosophically, they have shown they can adjust. The ability to win a certain way against the Chiefs and then ability to run the ball and win that way against the Raiders was huge. The challenge is real. Josh Jacobs, all of you know, has owned the Broncos throughout his career when he was with the Raiders. But this is a statement game. If you win this game, then you got Jacksonville. You got at the Chiefs on Christmas Day. Who knows if the Chiefs are going to be playing their starters at that point. And then you got the Chargers. You have a chance now to clearly secure the AFC's top seed because Buffalo comes back from its bye. They got Ravens, Bills. You got to think maybe the Ravens have one more good game in them. And the Bills, clearly that game, they're trying to still win the division over the Patriots. That's where if the Patriots lose those two games, the Broncos are clearly going to be the AFC top seed. But you win this one, all the talk of the Super Bowl becomes real because now you've gone against one of the NFC's top teams, a team that was viewed as a Super Bowl champ type team when they acquired Micah Parsons. And that you beat them and you show the country that, holy crap, you made us a home dog? That says something. So it should be fun. It's going to be a great week of coverage. Be out there all week. Broncos v. Packers. Broncos just absolutely riding these winning streaks. 10 overall, 11 at home. Got the Packers. It is going to be a blast. The best game of the season so far. Can the Broncos show that they can beat anyone, anywhere, anytime, anyway? Because that's kind of what they've done the last 3 weeks. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed it. This pod's made possible by Danny Bailey and Nate Lundy from Mile High Sports. My A1 from day one, Darby Hoggatt of Hoggatt Injury Law, and of course, Ted Shih from Shih Family Law Practice. I could not do the pod without all of them. Broncos country, I do this pod for you. Happiness that begins with me. Go out there and have a great day.